The aim of this video is to provide you with information on how to use the style known as Harvard referencing in your submissions. Now, some people may have used Harvard referencing before in academic writing. Some people may have been to college or university and had to use a different format of referencing. And some may not have even heard of referencing before. So we're going to start from the basics and think and consider, what is referencing? Now, basically, any sort of academic writing will include research, reading other people's work to be able to help you to consider writing, your judgments or conclusions or opinions, or just basically demonstrating understanding of that knowledge and subject area. So if you are going to be, looking at other people's work, you've got to be sure not to portray that work of as your own. It's important that you inform where you get information from in order to be able to assist the reader in understanding the exact sources of your information. So as I've noted down here, readers can see the exact sources you have cited in your work. Now, it could also be because they found your work interesting and they'd like to go away and read the book that you've, formulated your ideas and opinions from. So that could be one of the reasons as well. So why reference in general? So referencing is about recognising other people's work. Now consider that some people who, some of the great theorists of the world or professionals in their fields have spent decades putting together their theories or philosophies, models, or basically just putting their knowledge on paper. So it's important to be able to acknowledge that. It's important to be able to give them recognition for the work that they've done. Consider, Herzberg's motivational model. He spent decades, formulating that model, developing that model, but making sure that model improved throughout the years. And, you can see that in the different editions of his book. He's got 8 editions of one of his motivational books. So it's important to be able to recognise the work that they've done. Now, plagiarism is, it's something that every learner should know about. It is basically when you portray other people's work as your own. Now, we have plagiarism policy on Moodle, if you have a little read through that. And obviously you want to make sure that you're not portraying other people's work as your own, and the way that you can be sure that you're not doing that is by referencing the work that they have done, or the work that you have formulated your ideas, opinions, or ideas, or conclusions or justifications, or if you're providing an evaluation and using other people's ideas to formulate your own recommendation, then you need to be able to recognise the people's work that you're formulating them ideas from. So plagiarism, it is important to avoid plagiarism at all costs, and I will give you some tips on how to do that now. So we're going to look now at the difference between citation and referencing, okay? So citation is basically a small snippet of the reference in text of the submission, whether that's assignment or an essay, a report or a PowerPoint, and it's basically where you point out any other person's words or ideas within your work. So for example, if you were talking about Herzberg's motivational model, and you were quoting a specific piece of information from his work, then you'd note the snippet in text. So you may say, I agree with Herzberg's motivational theory and believe this could be implemented in our workplace, and you're informing of why you believe that theory will be useful within your current work practice. Now, the difference between citation and reference is the citation gives you a small snippet of the information, which basically then leads you to the reference. The reference should be at the end of your document. So in the end of your report or assignment or essay or PowerPoint, whatever. And a citation should only include a maximum of 3 pieces of information that should lead directly to the full information at the back of the document. And as I say, it should be at the end of the document, but before any appendices or additional pieces of evidence. And as you can see, where it says in the example here, Pritchard A 2009, in text, as I say, a maximum of 3 pieces of information. So it would either be the author and the date, if it's a paraphrase, which we'll go into in a little bit more detail in a minute. And if it's a direct quote, it will be the author, the date or the year of publication, and the page number. So just breaking that down a little bit further as to what I've just said there. If you are copying a definition, for example, to start off your assignment or to start off answering a question, so if you were using a dictionary and you used a definition, you would have to put any direct quotes, so the direct words from a book or an ebook or a magazine, for example. You would use it in, and you will put the direct quote in quotation marks, and then bracket the citation. So that would be the author, the year of publication, and the exact place to find that direct quote. And they are useful using direct quotes because you can then give examples or demonstrate your competence by explaining what you feel them words mean to you in your current practice. So you may see that a management professional would state in their book that in order for teams to meet objectives, they believe autocratic leadership is necessary in all work and practice. Now, you might take the direct quotes from that book and then inform, that this wouldn't work in my current workplace because we have more of a diplomatic style of leadership, as we value everyone's opinions and we've got an innovative workplace, for example. Paraphrasing is about looking at, say, a paragraph of information and then, looking away from it and then writing up your understanding of what you've just read. So it's basically putting other people's ideas into your own words. Now, I do think it's better to paraphrase because it demonstrates that you understand what you've just read, but you should also be sure to inform where you've formulated that idea from. So here's examples here of how you would cite a quotation and how you would cite anything that you've paraphrased. And this will be the full reference that you would see in the reference list at the end of the document. And as you can see, the author always comes first and the year of publication. So let's have a little talk now about the structure of a reference. Okay, so a number of general information that you would see, obviously dependent on the source, it depends on the different structure and format of that reference within the reference list. And we're going to go through the different sources in detail next, but let's just talk a little bit more about the details of the structure. So looking at date, this is the year of publication and sometimes even the month and the day when the source was published or made available. If no date is available, you can use ND, so not disclosed. If work is yet to be published, like a journal, for example, but you know it's going to be published in the near future, you could use forthcoming in that area. Next is the title or the name of the item. This is the title of the specific item that you've cited, basically. Now, the title of the overall work, you know, it doesn't link to all different types of sources, but this is the title of the overall work in which the item was cited or appeared. So an example could be an edited book from which you've used a chapter, or a journal from which you've used an article. So often is the case that journals come in volumes, and there can be different titles for each volume. So the item title, type or information. So for example, an ebook or a Twitter post or a journal. It could also be where information about the nature of the item or where it's placed. So an example could be that this is a special issue or a special edition or a specific section of a journal, for example. So publisher information. So this is the item's publisher's location and name. And this usually helps with the validity of the information by informing us of this. But again, if you're not sure, you can just put ND. So look, the location from which it's accessed, this is usually links to online material and usually links to a URL or a web address from which the item can be accessed. There are various modifications to this depending on the type of item, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit more detail in a minute. So, sources of information. Various types of sources of information. Basically everything can be referenced, and if you know, are worried or are thinking, oh, how can I reference a DVD? I mean, you can even reference a song, you can reference our tutorials, you can reference any sort of anything really. I mean, our PDF version of the referencing guide on Moodle provides you with an array of guides on, you know, other types of material or sources that can be used. But if you are struggling, contact your tutor for more guidance. So let's go into the individual sources. So referencing a book. So referencing a book is, you know, quite basic, and you can also really utilise the back of a book as well. So if, for example, you were struggling at first to do your referencing and formatting them well, there are some apps you can actually get on your phone where you can just scan the barcode at the back and it will make the reference up for you. So that's worth having a look at if you are struggling at the start. But basically, once you start moving with this, start with it, you will get better. So the author, and it is more than one author, you can add that on there, the year of publication, the title of the book, place of publication, and publisher information. So here's an example, and I'm just going to break it down for another example for you. So Stephen Winder is the author here. His book was published in 2002. Here was the title of the book. This was actually the second edition. So you might often see that there's more than one edition or special editions. So you will add that information here. Place of publication and the publisher's name. So this is the basic structure of referencing a book. And if you are going to be citing any of these books, this is how you'd cite them. If, for example, you were using direct quotes, you would add the page number here. So referencing an ebook. So basically, referencing an ebook is the same. You just need to inform that in square brackets that it is online, and you will need to inform of the available at URL. Now it's really important here that you remember that you've got to add not only the published date, but the date that you accessed this ebook. Obviously, we all know that things can be edited and changed online quite quickly, and you know, it is important to be able to inform when it was accessed, unless the reader is going to source that information and it has changed. So an example here, this ebook has 2 authors, so make sure that you will be informing of them. The year of publication, the title of the book, and in square brackets informing that it's online. The place of publication, if it's available. It's not always available, so if it is available, publishers information if this is available as well, and then available at and the URL, and making sure that you put the date that you have accessed there. If you are going to be citing this information, again, here's some examples for you. So let's talk a little bit about journals now and referencing a journal. So a journal is usually an academic piece of writing that's being published, usually in academic libraries, and you can find them online as well. Now, when you are referencing a journal, it's important to be able to, again, provide the author or authors, year of publication, title of article, title of journal, the volume, issue number, and page number. So there's a little bit more detail to this, but it is usually really easy to be able to find this information when you're looking at online journals. And online journals are brilliant for academic writing, and especially when you're writing reports and you want to use research from other people's academic writing in the past. Again, citation will just include the author and the date. So referencing an online journal is basically the same, but again, square brackets online, available at, URL, and the access date. Here's an example. Now within this example, as you can see, there are 3 authors. So you'll be informing us that of 3 authors in the full reference list with the year of publication, the title of article, the title of the journal, the volume, the issue, and the page numbers. And often there will be also a name of collection, but that might be the title of the journal, but there could be a collection of journals within one area as well. So bear that in mind. Your square brackets online, you're available at, and as again, it is important to inform of the accessed date. Now, because this has more than 2 authors, we wouldn't put all 3 of the authors in text in the citation. It's basically just too long. So we use the information you put et al, and that basically just informs that there is more than 2 authors, and then obviously the citation leads directly to the full reference at the end of the document. So referencing a web page, some people find this really, really difficult. Now, all I can say is if you are struggling, just give it a go. Here's some tips. Again, the author or publishing organisation. So bear in mind that you may not always be able to find the author. For example, if it's a website, an organisation's website, you might just want to put the name of the organisation because you don't know directly the person who's wrote up the information on that website. Although you may find, say, blogs on a website and it will have the author's organisation, the author's name and the date it was last updated. Now, if you know the year of publication, that's great, but often is the case there will be a last updated. Now, if you can't find this at the top of the information or article or page that you're looking at, often is the case you'll find it right at the bottom of that page. So have a little look through that, and if you're unsure when it was last updated, or the publishing organisation or author, then it might just be the title of the internet site. So for example, gov.uk, some people might find it hard to find who the publishing organisation is of the information that's on gov.uk, you know, whether that's the NHS or the HSE or whatever. So you just put the title of the internet site, then you put in square brackets online, available at, and the URL and the access date. So here's an example. And the citation there. So referencing diagrams, figures, or tables. Now, it doesn't really matter, you know, who the creator of the figure was. You know, it doesn't really matter if you've adapted that table or figure or diagram to meet the needs of your specific organisation or your actual project or whatever. But you should aim to cite the overall author from which you've found that. So it's useful to add you know, subheadings, or you know, under your citation you might say figure 1 and in brackets UniCourse 2021 if you've adapted, say, a table from an information pack. And here's an example of how you would format your reference here. Here's an example. So if you were to use a SWOT analysis template that was in the information pack or in the resources on Moodle, you will put UniCourse 2021 and you'll be able to see that from the, it usually informs in the information pack when it was made. Then you'd give the title of the document or the analytical table that you're using, the title of the overall unit, the place of publication and the publisher. So let's just talk about secondary referencing, and I'll talk about how you can reference on Moodle and off Moodle a little bit further. So secondary referencing is when you use a quote or idea but haven't read the original. You could always try and get hold of the original. The information packs, for example, are put in place to lead you to information to go and research a little bit further. But if you, say, for example, are looking at a specific project management tool or technique, or say a SWOT analysis tool, and you are just using, say, the information from an information pack, but you haven't actually directly looked for the source, then you just need to make that clear in your work that you've found it in a secondary course. So you may want to put a quotation or an idea from a source that you've referenced in work that you haven't read directly. So just make sure that you're informing of that. Now, often is the case that, you know, say management specialists that have created books in the recent years, they'll always sort of reference theories and models from, you know, decades ago and say how they believe that to be true or not true, or how they agree and how they don't agree. And that always, that can really help you to critically reflect on their ideas to formulate your own. And that's when you do start thinking critically. You know, the main point of using people's ideas is for you to be able to think outside the box, to be able to broaden your ideas, you know, and make sure that the justifications or recommendations that you are providing within your assignments or submissions are the best that they can be. Now, in order to get a distinction or a good pass, it's always good practice, especially when the question asks for a comprehensive evaluation, for example, or a critical reflection, or a critical evaluation, or explicit. If they're asking in the criteria with these words, you really do want to be including some form of theory within your answer in order to get the top marks. And I always say, you know, if you're answering a question and you want to be forming an assessment or a reflection that's critical. Provide, feed from one piece of theory or one piece of or one document that's not your own, or one piece of evidence, or one bit of research that you've done. If it's asking for a critical evaluation, it's really important for you to think of maybe two, to be able to compare and contrast different people's ideas. Now, a really good way of doing this, and a bit of a shortcut, is looking at more relevant materials today in that subject area, because they will often use other people's past tools, techniques, theories, models, ideas to be able to formulate their own, and maybe put together their own improved method or their slightly different method that's better for different organizations. So it's often a little bit of a shortcut to say, within this engineering model that was created in 2000, based on a past model in 1960, it's being adapted because this person believes this and this person believes that. In my opinion, in my current workplace, I agree with this person or that person. And you might even say in an evaluation, this would work well for this, but this wouldn't work so well for this work situation. So it's a really good little cheap way if you get more of an up-to-date book that talks about past theories that they've incorporated into their more relevant and up-to-date theory or model or research. That's also a really good reason to look at journals, because journals are often formulated from and put together based on other academic papers. So when you're looking at journals and reports, past reports, you can look at their ideas and see whether you'd agree with what they've done. So academic journals are really good to use when you want to start thinking critically and really drawing from other people's theory to make your answers as comprehensive as you possibly can. So here's an example. If you were going to be referencing a piece of information from the information pack, so you'd have UniCourse, you'd have the unit number, UniCourse, the year of publication, which you'll find at the top of the information pack in each of the headers, the title of the resource, title of unit, place of publication, and publisher. And here's the citation that you'd use. And if you were using a direct quote, just make sure that you're adding the page number there as well. I just want to inform quickly here how you would reference a video recording. So it's quite similar. You'd provide the author, the year of the module start, or the year of publication, or the year that it was added to the playlist or YouTube. Then you would add the title of the audio or video. So in this case, it could be a Harvard referencing guide. Then you'd inform in square brackets whether it was audio, a video clip. This is similar to how you'd reference any YouTube or video, like a TED Talk, for example. The module code and title, the available at URL, and the access date. So you reference and list a few top tips. Again, I'm going to mention this again. It's at the end of your document, and it is a document, on a page of its own. The difference between a reference and a bibliography, if you are wondering, is a bibliography is every source of information that you've used throughout your whole qualification. Often it's the case that universities will ask for this. We don't. We ask for a reference list on every submission, as obviously all the units are different within the different qualifications that we deliver. So all of the references should be in alphabetical order with the author's surname first. Your reference list should be at the end of the document, just before any sort of appendices, evidence, and then make sure top tip is make sure that you update your contents page as well at the end once you've finished with this. You can also use Word. It sometimes helps you to add the referencing list at the end, so you can do that at the start when you're when you start and open your template, your assignment template or whatever. Your reference list should aim to use a range of sources. So, just using internet sites all the time isn't really the best way to look at different writing techniques and to improve your academia. So maybe try, picking up actual books or using Kindles or, using videos or, not just the information packs, because there's a range of sources out there and just broaden your horizons and make your answers more comprehensive. So any questions that you do have, you can email your tutor, you can email inquiries at UniCourse, or you can contact the careers advisor, which is myself here at UniCourse, and I'll be able to help you a little bit further on that. All I can say is do not worry and do not stress about referencing straight away in your first assignment. Obviously give it a go, because we don't want to see any plagiarism. So always attempt and inform us. But if you're struggling with the format, don't really worry too much about it. Just try your best and you'll get given some feedback and you will improve throughout each submission. There's also sites that you can use online, such as neilstoolbox.com, where you can add all of it asks you for specific information and then forms the structure for you, so you can just copy and paste it onto your document. And once you've done that a couple of times, it will help you to break down what parts are needed within the referencing structure and format within the list, and you'll know what you're doing towards maybe second, third, fourth submission. So yeah, just give it a go, try your best, avoid plagiarism, recognise other people's work, and contact us for support if you need it. That concludes my video today.